A question for you, bones and ghouls. Do you ever find yourself going back to a game you haven't played in a while, or even starting a new game plus run of a game you just finished, and you end up taking basically the same build as you did the last time around and make all the same choices as before? I'm guilty of that myself and became really aware of it when we were streaming Typhon a while ago, and I realized that I basically did the same build from my original save file back in 2017. It makes you wonder what you're missing out on. So the next game I played, I decided I was going to see what I was missing by sticking to my usual path. I've been meaning to finally make a standalone video on Dishonored because Dishonored is great, and this is the perfect opportunity to really get a good look at what I'm missing. Just to cover our bases here, Dishonored is a stealth action immersive sim by Arcane, made in 2012, where you play as one Corvo Atano, bodyguard to the Empress, and the fall guy for a coup involving assassination of said Empress. You get rescued from prison by a group of loyalists who want to put the Empress's daughter back on the throne. But you also get granted spectacular abilities by an entity called the Outsider, who, while viewed as an analog for the devil by some groups in the world of Dishonored, the Outsider himself describes himself as neither good nor evil, and what people do with the powers he grants them is up to them. We're going to take the Outsider up on that idea by playing through the whole game twice. Once following the rules of the Clean Hands achievement, where we kill no one and avoid violence whenever possible, and then we do the exact opposite. We choose violence every time. Now, before we get into our twin runs of Dishonored, let's take a sec to give a shout out to indie devs who put out free demos of their games for us to check out. Come on, you guys know I don't really like doing ad reads. I'm trying to put the demo showcase here in the beginning of the video where an ad integration might go to see how that fares versus right at the end of the video when we're wrapping up, as a good number of folks already click off at around that time. Let me know if you like these shoutouts at the beginning or the end of the videos. I'm gonna be helping out demos and indies however I can. I just want to do it as efficiently as possible. Today we're giving a shout out to Aquametsis. If you like sneaking around and taking out bad guys one by one in big vertical levels like in Dishonored, you're gonna like Aquametsis. Aquametsis has you playing the role of an operator specializing in amphibious infiltration, who's been tasked with retrieving some documents on an offshore military base by whatever means you see fit. As far as I know, there are no time-skipping cigars. Aquametsis has a whole lot of space and verticality in just a tutorial alone, and there are a whole lot of systems to play with, like customizable weapons, biomods, stealth versus out loud combat, and everything in between. And you even get this cool little scout drone. I got a solid hour out of the tutorial alone for Aquametsis, and it's got me interested in what comes next in the full game. As always, it's a demo, so it is totally free to check out right now, and if you like it, give the main game a wishlist so that you can be there when it comes out. Now let's get to sneaking around the city of Dunwall. A brief primer before we start comparing and contrasting our runs. So the Outsider was sort of telling the truth about his powers being neither good nor evil. Dishonored has this thing called the Chaos system that was hyped up a lot and talked about even to this day. Heck, I mentioned it in my own video on Skin Deep we did a little while ago. The Chaos system governs the state of the world around you based on how much chaos you cause mission to mission. Now, I initially, among others, thought it was mainly to do with how many people you killed, particularly mission targets, which will govern enemy placement and the ending you get. Well, yeah, it does that, but it does a lot more. Like, basically everything in this game has at least something to do with the Chaos system. Like, I didn't think all that much of it when I first played Dishonored back in the day, but a quick trip to the wiki to double check what exactly I had caused on my runs, and yeah, it turns out every little thing you can do can not only cause chaos, but there are also things that reduce chaos. In hindsight, it makes a lot of sense that doing certain side quests where you don't necessarily kill people but still do a lot of harm will increase your chaos rating even if it doesn't violate the clean hands rule, but in the very same mission, you can do enough chaos reducing things to entirely negate any chaos you got from a side quest. I think it'd be better to just go through how each playthrough feels though, rather than pick apart a list of minor differences, so let's do that. By the way, there will be some minor spoilers for stuff like mission targets, but we aren't going into any serious plot details. We're just going to be talking about the gameplay and the effects of your playstyle. Let's start with our good boy Clean Hands run. I've never actually done a full-on Clean Hands playthrough in Dishonored until now. While I usually do spare people whenever possible, if a person's gotta go for the sake of keeping myself, so be it. Like, there are too many just really cool abilities in this game to not occasionally sentence a man to death for the crime of showing up to his shift as a little treat. Too bad I can't use those abilities for this run. The start of a clean hands run is rough, like really rough. You never realize just how slow takedowns are until you've got to get through that one area at the very start of Coldridge Prison and have to reload more times in that one part than you've ever had to reload in that level during previous runs, since you aren't allowed to kill people, and if you get caught, you have to reload, as you don't really have any means of effectively breaking detection right about now. For reference, I played both of my runs on the hard difficulty, and yeah, back to referencing skin deep, but I just had come off my playthrough of that and didn't realize how forgiving some games, particularly more recent stealth games, are with what counts as detection. And when you play something like Dishonored on the harder difficulties, where if a guard could reasonably see you IRL, you're gonna get detected. Crouching down behind a plant or something isn't gonna keep you from being spotted. My first run had me using one ability a whole lot for the first 2/3 of the game. F5, F9. You gotta quick save and quick load a ton when you're doing clean hands up until you can really invest in your stealth and mobility powers, and maybe the combat sleep dart too, because dudes will hunt you to the ends of the earth once they've seen you. Now, in the sake of fairness, this is expected if not intended. Dishonored is a game where the loading screen tips are things like, "Yeah, save a lot, buddy, you're gonna need it." However, that doesn't change that sometimes I'd spend close to an hour on the same section of a level, and having some levels be painfully slow to trudge through because guards kept seeing me from way downtown, or an action I had to take ended up alerting guards unless I did it in a very specific way. The flow of the game suffers greatly from this. Yeah, you'll eventually get to the point where you can either slip by or gently hug all the baddies in an area to sleep, but you're going to be doing a lot of reloading if you want to get to the next area without having to kill anyone. You're not going to be using a lot of stuff either, because you'll be trying not to kill people. And that means, unfortunately, you're locked out of using most of your gear in all the cool abilities. What doubly sucks is that the sleep darts, which are going to be your bread and butter for taking out dudes from a distance or getting out of detection, are one of the few things that you cannot upgrade the ammo capacity of. You're gonna be giving a lot of dudes hugs from behind. Be careful. You gotta catch them before they fall when you hug them, because if they fall off a ledge or into a body of water for even a second, they die, which I'm pretty sure counts as a kill, which violates clean hands, at least in spirit. With a clean hands run, I found myself being funneled into a handful of abilities, mainly blink, time stop, and occasionally possession. I did get the spooky vision, which mainly ended up being for looking for trinkets, but other than that, I didn't use it all that much because it feels cheap, and while I did just decide, hey, I'm gonna get whirlwind because no one ever uses it, I ended up never using it despite spending all those runes on it because I was worried I might accidentally kill an enemy by launching them off a ledge. In spite of all this, I found myself being much more creative in my clean hands run. I spent a lot of time finding alternate paths and looking for ways to get past security checkpoints, since I couldn't just go through them or get in a fight to take the dudes out. You really do not have any combat prowess in a clean hands run, thanks to even after you get combat sleep darts, some enemies taking more than a single dart to bring down when aggroed, and remember, you can only have up to 10 of those suckers total, and most of the time you're not going to be capped off. Even with the bone charm that will allow you to find more pickups. It was funny. At one point, I was so ImSim brained, just looking for alternate paths and unorthodox solutions to getting past guards, that I got stuck in the starting area of the Sokolov mission for a good 10 minutes or so. I tried to climb up and over the buildings to go through the rooftop. I tried turning into a fish and attempting to swim through the little gaps in the piers. I tried going inside the buildings from that one billboard. I tried seeing if there was a key I needed to steal off a guard for something. It turned out my dumbass just needed to walk through an unlocked door. This is your brain on stacking boxes, kids. The whole mission was rough. A lot of the missions are rough, and you'll be spending a lot of time reloading, and maybe even more time than you do actually playing, as you learn the tolerances of detection, and you spend every coin and rune you have on getting stuff that makes you harder to see and better at getting away when the bad guys inevitably see you. But it does get easier. I'm sure this is part of low chaos coming to play, but also part of getting comfortable with your build and playstyle. But by the time you get back to the Royal Palace to like deal with the Spy Master, like acting as Lord Regent, things get really easy. There are hardly any guys around because the way you've been playing, the story is interpreted that hardly anyone ever sees Corvo, and all that people really know is that he got out of prison somehow, and you haven't been active according to them. There's just been a series of accidents and career-ruining boondoggles that have been happening to everyone that was involved in the coup. You know what, I'm not changing that, it's just coup. On that note, despite us quote-unquote sparing all the major targets in Dishonored, most of these are fates worse than death. We're doing the equivalent of excommunication to a guy who built his whole life around the equivalent of the church, which is also heavily implied to make that person a complete societal pariah. Okay, maybe that's not a fate worse than death, but that's still really messed up. Then we hire a guy to kidnap a couple dudes, cut out their tongues, and make them go work in their own mine, which is arguably poetic justice, but also extreme. Unfortunately, we also cannot kill Sokolov. And then there is, whatever's going on with this guy and Lady Boyle. And finally, the only one who's sparing seems to be us not granting them a fate worse than death is the Grand Regent, who we just exposed for all the really horrific stuff he did, and he gets rightfully arrested. If anything, this is the one time where sparing someone isn't us being overly punitive. We're just bringing them to justice. Lastly, I consider Dowd more of a showdown between two rivals than an assassination, so I'm not really counting him. Back to the late game though. When we're just gonna sneak around the mission and then dart whoever we need to dart to keep things quiet, it's a breeze, since that's the only thing we've been doing all game. And not only have we been getting very good at it, but we've also gotten a lot of upgrades into those relevant skills. And I'm not exactly springing for exploding bullets on this run, so we have all the cash in the world to get the stuff that we want. I had to reload a fair amount on the rooftops in the flooded district, but not nearly as much as earlier levels, and confronting Dowd was basically just teleporting behind him and giving him a little hug, just like everyone else in the game so far. I actually tried to fight him non-lethally just to see what happened, and man, that dude could take a lot of tranquilizer without even so much as slowing down. Going back to the Hound's Pit pub was a non-issue, and I think King Sparrow Island took me less than 20 minutes according to my footage, and it was so easy it felt a bit disappointing when I got to the credits, like a, oh, that's it type of moment. Cooking segment time. So last weekend I went to an event and there was a stall selling those cool looking Sandos that you see at all the Asian food festivals. I was like, cool, new snacks to try, and we got them. They were pretty tasty, but geez, $15 for just a base sandwich and then like 18 to 20 bucks if you want it with like special sauce? Screw that. I'm learning how to make these on my own and you're gonna do it with me. So I literally just Googled like Katsu Sando, and it's not even that complicated. Bread, particularly milk bread, chicken or pork cutlets, cabbage, Kewpie, and something called tonkatsu sauce. I couldn't find milk bread, which is specified for these style of sandwiches, so we're using this nice, vaguely square bimbo loaf. And while there aren't any tonkatsu sauces at any of the stores I checked, which I did check several, trying to do due diligence, there was this stuff here, this Japanese barbecue sauce, which frankly I think made it taste better than the stuff I got at the food stall. Most of this is going to be me just making chicken katsu and then literally assembling some nice little sandwiches. So about that chicken, I already went ahead and butterflied it and salted it off camera and then let it sit in the fridge for an hour or so to let the salt remove excess moisture. Now comes the fun part, violence! Just do what I'm doing here and wrap a layer of cling wrap over the chicken and just start wailing on that sucker until it's flat. Like flat, like pizza crust flat, if you can get it that flat. Now, we're going to use a sacrificial slice of our bread as a guide rule here to get the cutlets portioned out just right. Actually, if you want, you can go a little smaller to get that effect where everything is neatly inside of the bread, because remember, these are going to get a little larger as we batter and bread them. Also, I'm not the sandwich cops. Do whatever you want, my dude. Once you've got your portions of chicken ready, we're going to bread them up. This is going to be a simple breading setup where step 1 has flours and lauries for a little flavor. Step 2 is going to be buttermilk with a little of our dredge mixed in for thickness, and step 3 is going to be just panko crumbs. If you're wondering why I prefer buttermilk to beaten eggs, it's way cheaper, it coats just as well if not better than egg wash, and it also has the benefit of getting thicker the more stuff you dunk in it for better coverage. Remember, one hand for wet stuff, one hand for dry stuff, and to set your breaded chicken onto a parchment paper lined baking sheet, and to not abandon any of the smaller scraps we have from our cutlets, because we can use those later. Those get breaded too. For now, we just need to let these cutlets rest in the fridge for at least half an hour so that the coating stays on when we cook them. Let's do the everything else. So I tried one of those strawberry cream Sandos too, and those were pretty nice, so I thought I'd give those a try. I thought that I could maybe make them even better if we got some of that melty chocolate to dip the strawberries in, and never mind. I swear I bought these strawberries like 4 days ago and they were fine. I guess we're just doing the savory Sandos today. That means that the only everything else we need to do is chop up our cabbage. We're going to do that really thin, which you can do by gently pressing the side of your knife against your curled inward knuckles. But remember, if you're going to do this cutting method, the edge of the knife never goes higher than directly above what you're cutting. Keep the blade controlled at all times. Now we're going to wash these strips of cabbage in a bowl, and after we're done cutting them up, that is. And then, once they're good and washed, we're going to add some more water and let them just soak in that bowl for a while to make sure they're not wilty and extra crispy. Now, just be on top of things to get your sandwich making station ready, because we're gonna fry these real quick. We're gonna pan fry these and not deep fry these cutlets. Get a high-walled saucepan only slightly full of a high temperature oil like corn or canola, and get that heat on medium to medium high. We might even turn it a bit down later, like I did here in this example, as we're not going to be frying a lot of physical mass at any given time, and the heat our stove adds to the oil will most likely outpace the cooling effect of putting the chilled cutlets inside. Now we're going to start out with these little scraps we breaded earlier and go one at a time, working our way up to the full-size cutlets that we intend to be our sandwich filling. There are a couple reasons for this. One, delicious chicken katsu. For another, by starting with the smaller but still equally thick to our full-size cuts, we can gauge how long it takes for the chicken to get cooked with a golden brown breading. For me, it ended up taking about 90 seconds to 2 minutes for the bigger ones on each side, but every combination of pan, stove, oil, and cutlet will be slightly different, so make sure to use your little ones as trial runs before you try to do like the ones you actually intend to put in your sandwiches. I cut the little suckers up, and after indulging myself a little too much, I ended up giving the rest to Dr. Charlatan as a pre-dinner snack. Once each cutlet gets golden brown on both sides, reserve them to a paper towel lined wire rack to drain, and we're gonna start making Sandos. Okay, sandwich time. So I'm pretty sure this stuff isn't exactly what I was supposed to use as sauce, and same goes for the bread, but that doesn't matter because these tasted great. What really matters here is that we generously coat both sides of our bread with that Kewpie, which is just mayonnaise. You can buy this at a normal grocery store. And then we add about half a handful of our cabbage, the sauce, and finally the cutlet. I tried slicing these down the middle like they do at all the stands selling these, but I have no little cute boxes to put them in. I also tried both smushing and not smushing the bread for cohesion, and they taste better unsmush, and you're not really gonna get that nice neat look in your home. Maybe if you did these a lot and you got very good at them, you could eventually get there, but it is what it is. These are really good, by the way. Man, I don't know if it's the freshly made katsu, but even though these don't look good at all, heck, someone said when I posted a picture of these on Twitter that they look like hospital sandwiches, and you know what? Fair? They are delicious though. They're also great and in just the right shape to wrap up as a snack for later, and even after refrigerating them overnight and eating them the next day, they still got a good crunch to them. As always, if you want the full recipe with a standalone video, I've got that over on patreon.com/charlatanwonder, where your support helps make these videos happen. Now let's take the other path in Dishonored. Welcome to round 2 of Dishonored, Maximum Violence Edition. We are now making it a point to choose the most violent solution possible for every problem we encounter in order to rack up as much chaos as possible. We are going to leave nothing but overfed rats in our wake, and we will finally get to use the ultimate weapon: gun! An intentionally high chaos playthrough is a totally different animal from clean hands, even if you're just gonna sneak around, which I did do a bit of sneaking around violence, but I also got really into the out loud combat since there's so many items and abilities that you only get to use if you're gonna start a big loud fight. As much as I ended up taking and even relying on alternate paths for my clean hands run in the previous playthrough, and ones I've done in the past, I ended up going on paths I've never seen before in my maximum violence run. Mainly through enemy guard posts. There's a lot of stuff you just never see if you're sneaking around because these are places where you only go if you're going to do a lot of fighting. The main one being that like half of the Dunwall Tower level just isn't a place you end up going if you're playing clean hands. Like you basically just go to the entry area of the tower, do the thing with the voice recording, which why on earth would you record this, man? And then you get out. Also, you get the exploding gun. Best thing ever. So the biggest thing I noticed in contrast to a clean hands run is that the game flows so much better when you're just gonna turn people into new additions to the wallpaper. With how in clean hands, if you get caught, unless you're really well into the game and have like gotten every whalebone thing possible to level into your skills that let you break detection, you're gonna be mashing F5 and F9 a lot, especially the latter. In maximum violence mode, when you get detected, you just go, oh hey, I don't have to go looking for all the other guys now. This'll speed things up a bit. When murder is on the menu, getting spotted by someone isn't the end of the world, and you're able to get through most of the game a lot faster. Most of the game anyway. But more on that later on. I just breezed through some levels. As a point of reference, when I played Sokolov House on my clean hands run, it took just over 2 hours. When I played it with no regard for human life in this run, it took me less than 30 minutes, and a good 5 of that was me just seeing how many guys I could lure into an arc pylon. When I checked the metadata on my recordings, it looks like my maximum violence run as a whole was about an hour shorter than clean hands. I thought it was going to be much of a larger difference because the latter certainly feels faster. However, an hour is something that can be arguably chalked up to playing a game the second time around right off the heels of your first go-round and having all the stuff you need to do fresh in your head. Some missions before the big turning point did take a little longer than they did in clean hands, but that was also because you end up doing a lot of exploring now that I was free to peruse levels without having to worry about the guards bothering me. Because I killed them all. My favorite thing about the maximum violence run is that you get to play with all the toys this time around. The gun is a monster of a weapon when you put all the upgrades into it. On that note, sometimes the AI just kind of falls apart when you're charging in guns literally blazing. They just run at you sometimes in a conveniently tight cluster so you can just mow them down. Lucky for the guards though, level design later on in high chaos playthroughs gives them plenty more spots to take cover and flank you from, so it's a bit more of a fair fight. Moving on from gun, though you get other stuff too. Rewire tools are now much more useful than just, okay, I need to disable alarm, because you see those walls of light and the arc pylons as opportunities for efficient guard removal, and the heavy breathing really starts when you see a rocket tower. You get the cool powers too. I never realized how fun it is to summon a swarm of rats anywhere you want until I started using Devouring Swarm to just clear out entire groups of guards while cackling like a maniac at the comical screams, just how hokey they are because it keeps layering on top of each other. Non-lethal things will also have a place in your toolkit because occasionally there's someone that you can't kill for some reason, and darts are a great way of making these people stay put. The best part is, thanks to your no loose ends mindset, you're gonna have all the cash in the world for upgrades because it's a lot easier to look for Sokolov paintings and other high value trinkets when all the guards that were supposed to be watching them fell victim to me wanting to summon more rats. Heck, even normal stuff starts getting wild as you finally start using the lethal crossbow, and once you really get good with it, you start asking some questions. So, Corvo here has a hand crossbow that we are assuming fires an 8-ounce or 0.2 kilogram steel bolt with enough speed and force to not only instantly kill a man on impact, but also is enough to send him flying, like knock him off his feet as he dies, as we have seen several kill cams of. Assuming that this man weighs 80 to 85 kilograms, like their average security guard sized dude, and we are assuming 45 meters per second squared, or whatever this ends up being, what does the draw strength on this bow have to be to accelerate this 8-ounce steel bolt fast enough to do that? What is the draw strength here? And is that even physically possible for Corvo to draw on such a small crossbow? Like, how much force does this crossbow need to do? Like, how much force does this crossbow need to shoot something at to make that work? That is the question, and I want a goddamn answer. Perhaps my favorite discovery when playing with as much out loud turbo violence as possible is that Dishonored has a proper boss fight in it, and hot damn is it a good time. When you give Dowd a chance to fight you, it's one hell of a showdown. Like in the Clean Hands run, Dowd is just some guy who set you up and you just need to get the key and move on. But when you're actually out to get him, the dude really is your equal. Like, man, I love figuring out how the time stop works when two different people are using that ability and how fast he moves around. It's a tough fight, and the second most I had to reload on this run, but it was that fun kind of reloading when you're learning a boss's patterns and how to beat them. I personally believe that unless a boss is meant to be a tutorial boss like Iodex Gundyr back in Dark Souls 3, if you can first try a boss you've never encountered before, that boss was perhaps too easy and might need some tweaking. Dowd does not disappoint when you're actually fighting him. So just like how the maximum violence run is the inverse of the Clean Hands run, the turning point in the playthrough is also inverted. Back in the Goody Two Shoes Clean Hands run, Dunwall Tower was the point where you were starting to get so good at your playstyle that you were just breezing through things as you've got all the tools you need and you're just playing how you want to play. And since you're keeping chaos levels low as possible, there's hardly going to be anyone to sneak around as you gently hug your targets until they fall asleep. By the time you get to King Sparrow Island, it's disappointing, but we've already gone over this. In Maximum Violence, however, Dunwall Tower is where you notice, hey, these guys are really starting to put up a fight. It's satisfying in a totally different way than the rewards of low chaos and makes for a better endgame in my opinion. Between the Dowd fight and then the enormous brawl that was King Sparrow Island on high chaos, I had a great time and I was really feeling challenged getting through the outer layers of the island's defenses. The only downside to this though is that you end up disappointing Samuel the Boatman. Emily and the other loyalists or whatever, but Samuel was literally there for us in all of our missions. I'm sorry, Samuel. Now that I've gone through playstyles on opposite extremes of the good boy meter, it not only gave me insight into how much your playstyle can affect your experience with Dishonored, but it also opened my eyes to stuff I hadn't even seen before in this game. Take that Dowd boss fight for example. In hindsight, my usual playthrough of mostly sneaking around felt a lot less rewarding than just charging around and killing everyone that crosses my path, but at the same time, there's still certain stuff you just don't get when you aren't sneaking around. These playthroughs don't even take into account other styles like completely ghosting your game, which, well, I mashed the F9 key enough during my Clean Hands playthrough, I think I'm gonna pass on that one. What really matters here is that it's worth it to take the road you don't usually travel because you never know what you're missing, not just here in Dishonored, but in other games too. Now, I know what you might be thinking right now, and don't worry, I didn't forget about the DLCs. In fact, I've made the call to not even so much as have any of them installed for these runs so that I didn't have my experience being watered down by having all those pre-order bonus bone charms you get from all the different places that had pre-order specials back in the day because that was the style at the time. I've also decided that the Knife of Dunwall and the Brigamore Witches are worthy of their own video since Arcane's always made some really good DLCs. No idea when that video is going to happen though, because Halloween in July is literally just a couple weeks away. And that'll do it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to like the video, leave a little comment, and subscribe. It really helps me get into the algorithm so that I can keep at it and other people can see videos like this one. Up next is hopefully going to be a video about System Shock 2 Anniversary Remaster, which at the time of writing and recording this, I haven't gotten any word from Night Dive or anyone related to the game, so I'm just going to assume that I'm getting it the same time everyone else gets it. So I'll probably be streaming it when it comes out, so we can see how cool it is together. And that's a good segue to talk about how, if you liked all the cool demos I tell you about in my videos, I'm live on that purple place right about now playing more of them. I usually stream Wednesdays and Fridays about 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, but on days I upload videos, we do a special little stream to check out all the cool demos of upcoming box stackers and anything else that just looks cool. We're probably going to do Pigface and Holston today, plus maybe a couple more like the trolley game. If you're watching this shortly after a video went live, there's a good chance I'm live right now. But let's sign off before we get into that. Remember that no matter what you do, be it drawing, singing, or gathering for whiskey and cigars, what you do is not content. It is art. Content is a word that in recent years has been twisted into meaning a means to reduce all your skills, passions, and aspirations into a gray sludge meant for nothing more than to make a line go up for someone else's benefit. Art is sacred. Art is inalienably a reflection of its creator by the very act of making it, and in no way do you deserve to be reduced to the gray sludge that is content. So get out there and fight for your art by fighting against the contentification of everything. And stay saucy.
Ooh, look at this boy. He in the narrow box. Tonkatsu. Kot. You just living your best narrow box life. Like, you got your wobble sticking out kind of at the end. Okay, it's not as bad as it used to be. You're definitely getting skinnier. Having a good sniff? Oh, right by all the shoes with all their smells. This is like the ideal box for you right now. It's usurped like the yogurt box. Why are you glancing around like this? What threat might come while you are in the instant ramen box? I guess it's a big enough threat to where you're heading out to the kitchen. Or are you looking for snacks? This food should dispense in like an hour. Snack time will happen soon.